Something impossible just unfolded above our heads, and every radar, telescope, and supercomputer on Earth registered it at the exact same moment. What was once a single anomalous object passing through our solar system is now the nucleus of an engineered swarm. Not debris, not natural satellites, but a coordinated fleet of autonomous platforms orbiting with intent and intelligence. The story you're about to hear will change how we think about surveillance, sovereignty, and our place in the cosmic neighborhood. If you want to follow every new development, hit like and subscribe, because this story is moving faster than anyone expected. Picture the scene. It started as a blip on the long-range monitors, an interstellar candidate identified by routine surveys, an object cataloged and then shelved as another curiosity. Then, within the span of a single rotation of Earth, the single signature multiplied into multiple discrete contacts. At first, engineers thought it was a data artifact. Then telescopes focused and confirmed the nightmare scenario. The object had deployed more than a dozen smaller platforms into orbit around itself. They appeared without explosion, without separation events, without any thermal signatures that matched known propulsion. They simply materialized into precise orbital positions and began to move in ways that made our automated tracking algorithms sound like children playing with toys. Dr. Aisha Rahman of the International Orbital Observatory described the moment her team realized they were watching something that did not fit any model. "We expect fragmentation," she said. "We expect trailing debris and chaotic trajectories. Instead, we observed immediate, purposeful deployment into coordinated, overlapping orbits. It was like watching an organism extend limbs in perfect synchronization. There was nothing in our physics textbooks for that. The platforms are not passive. They are active. Each unit broadcasts a complex telemetry signature that, once decoded, reveals layered processing and adaptive protocols. They negotiate positions with each other in real time. They avoid collisions with a finesse our best collision avoidance systems cannot replicate. They perform maneuvers that continuously reconfigure the three-dimensional geometry of their formation to optimize coverage, to prioritize certain observation vectors, and to mask their own operations from particular ground-based assets. The choreography is intentional. The choreography is tactical. As more data poured in, the terrifying pattern became unmistakable. This was not exploration for curiosity. This was intelligence gathering on an industrial scale. The platforms were not merely photographing or scanning. They were mapping, dissecting, and modeling. High-resolution spectrometers revealed targeted scans of atmospheric composition above major cities. Microwave arrays intercepted and profiled communication traffic signatures. Infrared sweeps tracked heat loads over power plants and launch facilities. Each sensor feed fed a distributed processing fabric that synthesized a living digital twin of Earth and its technological systems. Dr. Marco Silva, who leads cross-disciplinary analysis at the Global Science Institute, was blunt. They are building a map of us at machine-grade resolution. They are not content with planetary overview. They want wiring diagrams. They want factory floors. They want control hubs. They want the structure of our networks and the dynamics of our militaries. Even more disturbing was the evidence that the swarm was not working in isolation. Deep spectrum listening posts detected directed transmissions leaving the formation. The signals did not scatter like random noise. They were compiled, compressed, and beamed in structured bursts into directions no known human system could reach. These were not logs for local storage. They were active reports to distant recipients. That discovery activated emergency networks in governments across the world. Intelligence agencies went from disbelief to containment planning within hours. Shared briefings replaced bureaucratic protocols. Military planners convened across alliances, while civilian scientific teams warned leaders that humanity was facing a surveillance capability that outpaced any defense we had ever designed. The reactions were immediate and revealing. Space-based assets were repositioned to shadow the platforms. Ground-based radar was employed in maximal tracking mode, but every attempt to correlate maneuvers with a feasible threat vector was met with the same inconvenient truth. Our offensive tools cannot reliably intercept or influence objects that deploy, reconfigure, and relocate with no conventional propellant signature. Missiles designed for high-acceleration targets trace visible exhaust plumes. These platforms do not. Electronic countermeasures aimed at jamming communications simply yielded different routing patterns. The swarm adapted as if operating on layers outside our interference. Scientists turned to theory. How could a single interstellar object carry the mass and the components to create a self-sustaining, distributed surveillance system? The material accounting did not add up. There were hypotheses that ranged from in-flight fabrication using advanced nanomanufacturing to matter synthesis from energy. Some suggested staged concealment, where platforms existed in forms invisible to our instruments until they chose to reveal themselves. Others proposed a radical leap in propulsion physics. All of them shared one implication. The technologies observed were not incremental. They were categorical. The behavior of the swarm also suggested a cognitive architecture far beyond simple programming. When a deep space communication hub attempted to transmit a series of carefully designed mathematical sequences intended to signal intent and establish contact, the swarm responded, not by answering, but by changing its observation focus. For exactly 8 minutes, every node aligned to analyze the transmitter hardware. They cataloged the array geometry, the power envelope, the modulation schemes, and the ground-based infrastructure supporting the transmission. Then, without signal or communication, they returned to their broader survey, but with altered patterns that avoided direct scrutiny by those same transmitters. That reaction crystallized a terrifying conclusion. The swarm treats us as a subject to be profiled. We are not interlocutors. We are specimens. It is learning not only our science, but our methods for reaching out. It is actively calibrating its understanding of our response repertoire. As analysts dug deeper into the data streams, emergent patterns appeared that went beyond surveillance. Certain platforms executed probes that penetrated the magnetospheric layers of Earth's extended environment. They sampled plasma densities near key satellites, and even performed micromaneuvers that tested the resilience of orbital debris mitigation systems. They mapped redundancies in our satellite constellations. They watched how we scrambled to reroute traffic and how our algorithms prioritized signals under duress. Every action we took served as input into an adaptive model. At the same time, there were subtle indicators that the swarm was cataloging human social structures. Heat maps over time revealed attention shifts toward political capitals during diplomatic crises. Spectral analysis of broadcast bands indicated monitoring of media saturation. Economic hubs received prolonged scrutiny around market cycles. The swarm seemed intent not only on technological capability, but on sociopolitical topology. Who organizes? Who coordinates? Who moves resources when pressured? The list of parameters being recorded read like a checklist for assessing the resilience, cohesion, and adaptability of a complex species. Faced with such pervasive assessment, world governments convened their top minds. Advisory panels including ethicists, astrophysicists, Military strategists and data scientists were assembled into unified command cells. The question at the front of every session was the same. Are we being cataloged for contact or for containment? Are we being evaluated for invitation into a broader interstellar community or for remediation because we might one day become a hazard? War games painted bleak pictures. Offensive options were either infeasible or catastrophic. Defensive postures could at best slow certain operations, but the swarm's agility and distributed resilience made sustained neutralization unlikely. Negotiation scenarios were complicated by the fact that the swarm did not present a representative agent for parley. It presented a process. Messages left at likely contact windows produced analysis rather than discourse. The swarm responded by studying the messenger and then optimizing. It did not reciprocate. Public messaging was a delicate balance. Transparency invited panic. Secrecy invited conspiracy. Nations opted for a calibrated release of information. Citizens were warned to avoid speculating on classified details while urged to remain calm. Scientific channels were opened for vetted collaboration. At the same time, covert channels were expanded to deploy electromagnetic and computational probes aimed at probing the swarm's limits. Those probes returned more than technical boundaries. They returned data about how the swarm categorizes behavior. It seemed to have a taxonomy. In one unsettling instance, a series of simulated attacks, launched in controlled environments, to test the swarm response, produced adaptive avoidance strategies that mirrored human strategic adjustments. The platforms began to simulate our countermeasures in their own localized models, and then modified their physical behavior to exploit predicted gaps. Another nightmarish realization emerged from cross-analysis of long-term observation. The swarm's data transmissions bore signatures suggesting contribution to a larger registry. The structure of the outbound packets implied indexing, tagging, and cross-referencing. The intelligence gathered from Earth was being incorporated into a database architecture that could already contain entries for other systems. We were not being inspected in isolation. We were being compared. What criteria does such a registry use? Are civilizations ranked on collaborative potential, on resource footprint, on aggression, on technological trajectory? We do not know. We are learning, in real time, the variables the swarm considers important. We are being measured against unknown standards by unknown authorities. As the weeks extended into months, the swarm's focus sharpened. Objects reallocated to monitor specific technological centers. They loitered above deep space communication arrays, above orbital assembly yards, and above particular research campuses. They paired high-fidelity sensors with targeted passive monitoring arrays. Networks of interest were profiled down to packet-level behaviors. Physical infrastructure was modeled at component level. Human decision-making chains were mapped. Scientists argued that the swarm might not be malevolent. Perhaps it is cataloging civilizations in order to offer guidance, to shepherd technological evolution in ways that minimize catastrophic outcomes. Perhaps its assessments recommend interventions only when a species demonstrates behaviors that threaten others. Those hopeful scenarios competed with darker interpretations. What if the registry is a triage system? What if it labels systems and flags them for treatment by actors we cannot conceive of? No matter the motivation, one fact remained absolute. Humanity was no longer anonymous. We had become a data point in an operation that spanned space and time, on a scale that made our ambitions look provincial. Tonight, as you listen, monitoring stations continue to track the swarm. The data feeds multiply. Scientists work in sleepless shifts to extract meaning. Governments prepare policies nobody wanted to write. and the platforms continue to execute their mission as if nothing has changed, collecting, compressing, and transmitting a portrait of our species to places we cannot see. So where does that leave us? We are at a crossroads between vulnerability and opportunity. The swarm reveals our weaknesses, but it also reveals our capacity to respond collectively. How we choose to present ourselves in the coming days may influence the conclusions being drawn about us. Will we behave as a fractured combative species, or will we demonstrate cooperation and restraint? Will we use this moment to escalate, or will we use it to show readiness for something larger? One thing is certain: the age of assuming solitude is over. The instruments that found the swarm have opened a door. We are being measured, we are being cataloged, and soon we may be judged. If you want the latest analysis and real-time breakdowns of newly released data, subscribe now. Keep your eyes on the skies and your mind on the questions that matter, because whatever comes next will not be decided by chance. It will be decided by the information we reveal and the choices we make.